Good day mga kakodals, mga kapwa co-working law students, mga law students dyan, saan man panig ng Pilipinas. I hope that you are fine. Today is Easter Sunday, Linggo ng Pagkabuhay. I hope that you were able to have a reflection on the Lenten season, lalo na dito sa Holy Week, no? Pero as a law student, I guess we don't have that luxury to celebrate or to enjoy the long weekend because, as usual, we are bombarded with case readings, digesting cases, and studying for our exams. So, for this episode, I'll be presenting to you the Criminal Law 2 subject, no? Book 2, Title 2. So, disclaimer lamang, this video is made by the uploader as his way of studying the subject. I am not yet a lawyer, nor an expert in this field. I am just expressing my ideas and how I understood the subject of criminal law 2. So, we will be discussing articles 128, 129, and 130. So, these are these are the topics that we are going to discuss. So, what are the crimes known as violation of domicile? Violations of domicile by entering a dwelling against the will of the owner thereof or making search without previous consent of the owner. That's Article 128, or commonly known as violation of domicile. Number 2, search warrants maliciously obtained and abused in the service of those illegally obtained. That is Article 129. And the last one is searching domicile without witnesses. That is Article 130. So Article 128, violation of domicile, the penalty of prison correctional in its minimum period shall be imposed upon any public officer or employee who, not being authorized by judicial order, shall enter any dwelling against the will of the owner thereof, search papers or other effects found therein without the previous consent of such owner, or having surreptitiously entered said dwelling and being required to leave the premises shall refuse to do so, if the offense be committed in the nighttime, or if any papers or effects not constituting evidence of a crime be not returned immediately after the search made by the offender, the penalty shall be prison correctional in its medium and maximum period. So, what are acts punished under Article 128? Number 1, by entering any dwelling against the will of the owner thereof. So, when we say against the will, so entry in a domicile is against the will when the offender ignores the prohibition of the owner, which may be expressed or implied. As when the door is closed, even though not locked, when a person who admitted the public officer is one with sufficient discretion, the right to privacy is waived. Hence, prohibition thereafter can no longer constitute violation of domicile. Permission once given cannot be recalled as to constitute violation of the article. When he is asked to leave and refuses to leave, it is unjust vexation. By searching papers or other effects found therein without the previous consent of such owner. So when we say when the officer who was allowed entry starts to search the dwelling, what should the owner do? When the officer is admitted and he starts to search, the owner must stop him. Otherwise, permission is deemed granted and it will be construed as a consented search, which is one of the valid warrantless searches. If he stops the public officer and the latter continues to search, there is violation of domicile. And the third act, punishable by refusing to leave the premises after having surreptitiously entered said dwelling and after having been required to leave the same. When the entry is done surreptitiously and the owner ordered the public officer to leave, refusal to leave would amount to violation of domicile. Where entry is with permission of the owner, kung pinayagan ng owner, and search is done, refusal to leave when asked to do so is not violation of domicile, but unjust vexation. If the public officer is one whose function does not include the duty to effect search and seizure, the crime is trespass to dwelling. So what are the elements common to the three acts? First is that the offender is a public official or employee. Second, that he is not authorized by judicial order to enter the dwelling and to make a search therein for papers or other effects. So yun yung common acts sa tatlo, 128, 129, and 130. Now let's go to circumstances qualifying the offense. Now, circumstances qualifying the offense of the violation of domicile if the offense is committed at nighttime. Kung sa gabi nangyari. If any papers or effects not constituting evidence of a crime are not returned immediately after the search made by the offender. Now, violation of domicile can only be committed by public officer or employee if committed by private person, there is trespass to dwelling. Now, violation of domicile happens when a public officer authorized to implement a search warrant or warrant of arrest, but at the time of the incident, he is not authorized to do so by judicial because he is not armed with the warrant. Against the will of the owner must be expressed or implied. Silence of the owner of the dwelling before and during search without search warrant by a public officer may show implied waiver. If the public officer were armed with a handgun and they threatened the owner, there is no implied waiver, even if the owner did not object to the search. If the public officer is one whose function does not include the duty to effect search and seizure, no, the crime is trespass to dwelling. Article 128 is not applicable for searches outside the dwelling without search warrant. Let's go to Article 129. Search warrants maliciously obtained and abused in the service of those legally obtained. Now, what are acts punishable in connection with search warrants? Number one, procuring a search warrant without just cause. Number two, by exceeding his authority or by using unnecessary severity in execution or severity in securing a search warrant legally procured. Now, what are the elements of procuring a search warrant without just cause? Number one, or letter A, that the offender is a public officer or employee, that he procures a search warrant, and 3, that there is no just cause. Now, what is a search warrant? A search warrant is an order in writing issued in the name of the people of the Philippines, signed by a judge and directed to a peace officer, commanding him to search for personal property described therein and bring it before the court. Now, what are the requisites for a search warrant? What are the requisites for a search warrant? Now, there are 3. There is probable cause in connection with one specific offense. So meaning there's only one specific offense. Number 2, to be determined personally by the judge after examination. When we say examination, the judge should conduct searching questions and answers under oath. So when we say examination, there should be a searching questions and answers now. Under oath or affirmation of the complainant and the witnesses he may procure or produce, and particularly number 3, describing the place to be searched and the thing to be seized, which may be anywhere in the Philippines. So it should be specific. Di pwede na basta-basta na lang, no? Ano yung kukunin mo doon sa loob kung saan ka mag-search. So personal property may to be seized. A search warrant may be issued for the search and seizure of the following personal property: subject of the offense, stolen or embezzled and other proceeds or fruits of the offense, or used or intended to be used as the means of committing an offense. Now, peace officers may enter the house of an offender who committed an offense in their presence. This is what we call as ah, yung tinatawag natin na in flagrante delicto. Peace officers are authorized to make arrest without warrant for breaches of the peace committed in their presence and may enter the house of an offender for such purpose, provided the unlawful conduct is such as to effect public peace. Now, right to break door or window to effect search with warrant, there should be two witnesses needed in searching the house or room or premises. Always remember that search warrants is valid for 10 days from its date. And search and seizure without warrant as an incident to a lawful arrest is legal under Rule 126 of the revised Rules of Criminal Procedure. Now, what are the elements of exceeding authority or using unnecessary severity in executing a search warrant legally procured? Number one, or letter A, that the offender is a public officer or employee. Letter B, that he has legally procured a search warrant. And letter C, that he exceeds his authority or uses unnecessary severity in executing the same. Now let's go to Article 130, searching domicile without witnesses. The penalty of arresto mayor in its medium and maximum period shall be imposed upon a public officer or employee who, in cases where a search is proper, shall search the domicile, papers, or other belongings of any person in the absence of the latter, any member of his family, or, in their default, without the presence of two witnesses residing in the same locality. Now, what are the elements of these? Elements that the offender is a public officer or employee, that he is armed with search warrant legally procured, that he searches the domicile, papers, or other belongings of any person, and next is that the owner or any member of his family or two witnesses residing in the same locality are not present. Now, if we try to compare Articles 128, 129, and 130, in Article 128, there is no warrant. In Article 129, there is a warrant, but the warrant was maliciously obtained. And in Article 130, there is a valid warrant, but there was abuse in its implementation. Even if the search warrant is valid, there is violation of domicile in the following situations. The public officers exceeded his authority under the search warrant. Like for instance, example, in one of the case, the law enforcers were armed with a warrant for the search of NPAs in a certain house. They opened drawers and found firearms therein. The search was invalidated because they opened drawers when what are sought under the warrant were NPAs who could not have been hiding inside the drawers. Hindi naman magtatago yung NPA sa loob ng drawer. So yun yung problema. Number two, the searching officer employed excessive severity or destruction in the house. Letter C, the search was made when the occupants were absent and in the search conducted without compliance with the requirement that it be made in the presence of at least two witnesses who must come within the locality where the search was made. The law imposes additional liability for the perjury resorted to by the public officer in obtaining search warrant without probable cause. Now, what procedures must be followed in searches and seizure? Rule 126 of the revised Rules on Criminal Procedure lays down the steps in the conduct of search and seizure. A search warrant is issued upon probable cause in connection with one specific offense. One specific offense, one search warrant. To be determined personally by the judge after examination, that is by asking searching questions, and under oath or affirmation of the complainant and the witnesses he may produce. The search of a house, room, or any other premise be made in the presence of the lawful occupant thereof, or any member of his family, or, in the absence of the latter, in the presence of two witnesses of sufficient age and discretion residing in the same locality. And number three, the warrant must direct that it be served in the daytime, unless the property is on the person or in the place ordered to be searched, in which case a direction may be inserted that it be served at any time of the day or night. Under Section 9, and there was a jurisprudence, David versus Arroyo. So, there you have it, guys. So, again, isang mapagpalang araw sa inyong lahat. I hope that you have learned something on Articles 128, 129, and 130. So, sa hindi pa nakapag-subscribe sa YouTube channel natin, please subscribe na po sa YouTube channel natin. And paki-like na rin ng video. And paki-click na rin ng notification bell para kayo ay updated sa mga bago nating videos upload. Please also visit my Facebook page, Working Law Student PH, at also sa ating TikTok din, Working Law Student PH. So again, maraming salamat sa inyong lahat. God bless everyone. Bye-bye.